Did I ever think I'd be the guy punching my own brother over a stunt so delusional it could only come from him? I'm Brody, a 32-year-old senior software architect, and I swear my life was normal until my family's chaos dragged me back into their orbit. I grew up in a small Michigan town, the oldest of three kids, where the air always smelled faintly of pine and lake water. My younger brother Nate, 29, has been my mother's golden boy since he could toddle, while my sister Caddy, 27, and I scrapped for every achievement. Mom's favoritism wasn't subtle. Nate got a car for his 18th birthday. I worked summers at a greasy diner to afford mine. When I needed college tuition help, I got lectures on bootstraps. Nate. An $85,000 loan for a taco truck that tanked in 8 months courtesy of my parents' savings. I still see Mom's martyred face writing a $500 check for Nate's bike wreck, while I got grounded for less. Caddy gets it. She worked night shifts at a 24-hour diner through nursing school, while Nate partied in Mom's basement. We vent monthly on video calls, betting on Nate's next disaster. Last month I won $50 when he lost $3,000 day trading after a YouTube binge. I busted my tail at Michigan State, landed a tech job in Chicago, and built a solid career. 2 years ago, a remote job with a $45,000 raise and stock options worth $30,000 lured me back home. I bought a condo, lived well, and thought I'd left the family nonsense behind. My best friend Derek, a 32-year-old mechanical engineer, has been my rock since middle school. He's got this razor-sharp sarcasm, once called out a teacher for blaming me for Nate's paper airplane stunt, earning us both detention but cementing our bond. We play basketball every Saturday, outsmarting college kids with sneaky elbows and trash talk, then debate whose family is more unhinged. His dad split when he was 8, so it's a tight race. Then I met Allison, 30, at a tech meetup. She was presenting on digital marketing, dropping Star Wars references that hooked me instantly. Smart, direct, with a dry wit and a jiu-jitsu black belt earned after a creepy college incident, she's not someone you mess with. We hit it off, got serious fast, and spent evenings laughing over lightsaber feasibility with Derek. I kept her from my family at first. Past drama taught me to protect what matters. By Christmas, I figured it was time for them to meet her. Big mistake. Nate saw her picture and flipped, screaming I'd stolen his ex. I had no idea they'd gone on 3 casual dates months before I met her. Allison later confirmed Nate got possessive, fast, showing up at her job with flowers after she pumped the brakes. He stormed upstairs like a teenager. Mom shot me that disappointed look she's mastered. The air in the room turned heavy like the Michigan winters I used to shovel through alone while Nate got ice cream for trauma. I refused to let this derail us. Nate whined to anyone who'd listen. Mom made snide loyalty comments, but I thought we'd moved past it. I was wrong. Things were about to implode in ways I couldn't imagine. For months, I ignored Nate's tantrums, focusing on Allison. We'd been together a year when I knew she was the one. I planned a perfect proposal at her favorite restaurant private room. Both families invited a ring that cost 3 months' salary. The night was magic. She said yes. Everyone cheered except Nate, who stormed out, Mom trailing him like he'd lost a limb. Dad just shrugged, staying for the party. Derek later quipped, "Your mom chased a 29-year-old throwing a fit over your engagement. Think about that." It was absurd, but telling. 2 months later, Nate invited us to dinner at his place with Mom, Dad, and Caddy, claiming he wanted to clear the air. Caddy texted me, "Suspicious timing." Taser. I laughed, thinking she was joking. I should have known better. That dinner was a trap, and what Nate did next would set off a chain reaction that changed everything. The moment Nate saw Allison's picture, his face twisted like he'd bitten into one of his own overpriced tacos, and I knew trouble was brewing. I'd been back in Michigan for a year, settling into my remote tech job, the kind of gig that makes you feel like you've finally outrun your past. My condo smelled of fresh paint and possibility, and meeting Allison at that downtown tech meetup felt like fate. She was 30, sharp as a tack, presenting on digital marketing with a confidence that silenced the room. Her 3 Star Wars references delivered deadpan had me grinning like an idiot. I introduced myself after, and we clicked over coffee, her dry humor cutting through my usual guardedness. 6 months in, we were serious. She'd grown up with 4 brothers, no patience for nonsense, and a jiu-jitsu black belt that screamed, "Don't test me." When she met Derek, they bickered for 2 hours about lightsaber physics while I sipped my beer, smitten. Keeping her from my family felt like shielding a rare book from sticky fingers, but by Christmas I thought it was time. I showed Mom and Dad her picture, expecting smiles. Instead, Nate exploded, shouting, I'd stolen his girlfriend. The room went quiet, the air thick as Michigan fog. I had no clue they'd even met, let alone gone on 3 dates months before I knew her. Allison filled me in later, her voice calm but edged with disbelief. She'd met Nate at a bar through mutual friends, gone out 3 times, nothing serious. On their last date, he pushed for her to meet his parents and planned a Chicago weekend, moving way too fast. When she told him to slow down, he showed up at her marketing firm with a bouquet, acting like they were soulmates. She cut contact, creeped out by his intensity. Hearing this, I felt my jaw tighten. Classic. Nate turning 3 dates into a Shakespearean tragedy. He stomped upstairs, slamming his door like the 14-year-old he still was at 29. Mom's disappointed glare hit me like a slap, her silence louder than Nate's tantrum. Dad just sipped his coffee, avoiding eye contact. I told Allison I wouldn't let this nonsense ruin us. She nodded, her hand squeezing mine, but I could see the worry in her eyes, like she sensed the storm coming. For weeks, Nate played the victim, telling cousins, aunts, anyone who'd listen, that I'd betrayed him. Mom fueled it, dropping passive-aggressive jabs about family loyalty whenever Allison's name came up. At Sunday dinners, she'd sigh. Some people don't consider others' feelings, while Nate sulked. Caddy, my ally in surviving Mom's favoritism, texted me daily. Memes about entitled siblings keeping me sane. She'd worked brutal diner shifts to pay for nursing school while Nate partied in Mom's basement, so she got it. During our video call, she bet Nate would crash and burn next with a crypto scheme. I countered with day trading. She laughed. "You're on for $50. Sure enough, Nate lost $3,000 in 2 days after binge-watching YouTube experts. I Venmo'd Caddy her winnings, shaking my head. Derek, meanwhile, kept me grounded. Over basketball, he'd dunk on college kids, and me with equal relish, saying, "Your brother's living in a soap opera, and your mom's the director." He'd been telling me for years to stop chasing Mom's approval, said it was like trying to win a rigged carnival game. I'd nod, but part of me still hoped she'd see me, not just Nate. Allison handled the family tension like a pro, deflecting Mom's snide comments with wit. Once at a barbecue, Mom questioned her career, implying marketing wasn't serious. Allison smiled. "It pays my bills and keeps businesses running serious enough for me." I loved her for that. But Nate's whining didn't stop, and I sensed he was plotting something. When he went quiet for 2 months, I should have known it wasn't peace, it was him reloading. His next move would make that Christmas blow-up look like a warm-up, and I'd be left wondering how my family could sink lower than I ever imagined. Fast forward to summer, and Allison and I had been together for about 15 months, our relationship a steady anchor in the choppy waters of my family life. I knew she was the one, the way she'd challenge me on code logic during late-night talks, or roll her eyes at my terrible puns, made everything click. I planned an elaborate proposal for her birthday, renting a private room at her favorite Italian spot downtown, the kind with dim lights and garlic bread that could make you forget your troubles. I invited both our families, and close friends spent 3 months' salary on a ring with a diamond that caught the light like starlight. The night unfolded perfectly. I got down on one knee, poured out my heart, and she said yes with tears in her eyes. Cheers erupted, glasses clinked, and for a moment the world felt right. But not everyone joined in. Nate's face went pale, then red, and he stormed out mid-applause, Mom scurrying after him like he'd been wounded in battle. On her way, she shot me a glare that could curdle milk, as if I'd timed the proposal to spite him. Dad shrugged apologetically and stayed, raising his glass with a forced smile. The rest of us carried on, but the joy had a shadow now, like clouds rolling over a picnic. Later that night, Derek pulled me aside in the parking lot, the cool Michigan air carrying hints of rain. "Your mom literally chased after a 29-year-old man throwing a fit about someone else's engagement," he said, shaking his head. "Think about how insane that is." When he framed it that way, it hit me, hilarious in its absurdity, disturbing in its truth. Nate had always been the center of Mom's universe, but this was next level. Allison and I drove home in quiet triumph, her ring sparkling under streetlights, but I could feel the undercurrent of unease. For 2 months, Nate went radio silent, barely acknowledging me at family gatherings, which suited me fine. I threw myself into wedding planning, scouting venues with lake views, and debating cake flavors with Allison, who insisted on chocolate with raspberry filling. Caddy helped, sending links to florists and joking about eloping to avoid the drama. Then out of the blue, Nate texted about a dinner at his place, him, me, Allison, mom, dad, and Caddy. Want to clear the air before the wedding, he wrote. Suspicious, but with buffers there, we agreed. Caddy messaged me beforehand. Suspicious timing. Want me to bring my taser? I chuckled, assuming exaggeration, but a knot formed in my gut. Dinner was tense, the air in Nate's apartment thick with the scent of takeout pizza and unspoken grudges. Mom peppered Allison with questions about her family and career, her tone laced with judgment, implying marketing was a hobby compared to Nate's entrepreneurial spirit. Allison handled it gracefully, even complimenting Mom's new haircut, a choppy bob that looked like it lost a fight with scissors with a straight face that had me biting back a laugh. We moved to the living room for coffee small talk, sputtering like a dying engine. About half an hour in, Nate stood up, clearing his throat dramatically. I have an important announcement, he said, launching into a rambling speech about family and special moments. Then, unbelievably, he dropped to one knee, pulled out a ring box, and proposed to Allison. The room froze, silence crashing like a wave. Allison's face twisted in horror. She snapped, "Put that away and get up." Dad stammered something, but I was already moving, grabbing Nate by the collar and punching him square in the jaw. He tumbled back, knocking over the coffee table with a crash that echoed my rage. Dad pulled me off as Nate babbled delusions about Allison using me to get back at him for dumping her. Mom screamed at me for hitting her precious boy, ignoring the insanity he'd unleashed. Caddy hustled Allison and me out the door, slamming behind us like a punctuation mark on the madness. In the car, Allison fumed, her hands shaking on the wheel. I went on 3 dates with him, Brody, 3, and he pulls this a year and a half later. Who does that? I had no answer. Nate's world defied logic, a bubble. Mom had inflated for years. My hand throbbed, knuckles bruised, but nothing broken as we got home. I iced it, while Allison paced the kitchen, venting about the humiliation. The next week, I saw red every time my phone buzzed, parents defending Nate, mom texting that I overreacted, that he was sensitive and expressing feelings. Violence is never the answer, she wrote. I fired back, neither is proposing to your brother's fiancée. It was the tipping point. I knew confrontation was coming, but this stunt had cracked open fissures I'd long ignored, leading to revelations that would upend everything. My knuckles still ached from punching Nate, but the real pain was the betrayal simmering in my chest, hot and sharp like a blade. Allison and I tried to move forward, picking out wedding invitations with embossed gold script, but Nate's stunt hung over us like a storm cloud. I decided to confront him directly, needing answers before this tore us apart. I called him, insisting Allison be there, and to my surprise, he agreed to come to our place the next weekend. When he showed up, he looked like he hadn't slept in days, eyes red, shirt wrinkled, the usual Nate swagger gone. The living room smelled faintly of Allison's lavender candle, but the air was thick with tension. I broke the silence, demanding, "What was that proposal nonsense about?" Nate slumped on the couch, muttering, "It's not what you think." He claimed his buddy Craig, his go-to guru for bad ideas, convinced him Allison was dating me to get revenge for Nate rejecting her. Craig, the genius behind Nate's failed food truck logo that looked like an anatomical disaster, cooked up a test. If Allison was using me, she'd either say yes to Nate's proposal or be flattered by it. She was disgusted. Nate admitted, "So maybe she really loves you." Allison's jaw dropped. "You humiliated us to prove a point." "That's insane." I cut in. "Craig lives in his mom's basement. Maybe don't take life advice from him." Nate doubled down, spouting garbage about bros before hoes and how he'd have backed off if the roles were reversed. I told him his invitation was already shredded, and he stormed out, declaring he wouldn't attend the wedding anyway. "3 dates isn't having her first, you idiot," I shouted after him. Mom was worse. I called her to lay out Nate's explanation, hoping she'd see the lunacy. Instead, she called it a misunderstanding, saying Nate really liked Allison. "You should have checked with him before dating her." Allison, loud enough for Mom to hear, snapped. 3 dates a year and a half ago, I barely knew him. Mom hung up, and I could almost hear her rewriting reality to protect her golden boy. Caddy called later, fuming. Mom created a monster, Brody. Good luck getting her to admit it. She was right. Mom's denial was a fortress, and I was tired of scaling its walls. We pushed forward with wedding plans, booking a string quartet and tasting caterers' samples, but the drama lingered like a bad aftertaste. Then at Caddy's promotion dinner for becoming an ER charge nurse, things exploded again. Mom hosted at their house, Nate conveniently busy. The dining room smelled of her overcooked roast and the mood was already strained. Caddy, trying to lighten things, mentioned her Europe trip and casually asked if I'd mind Nate at her birthday party. I laughed, saying it was her call. Mom, who'd been simmering all night, snapped. Is Nate really still uninvited to your wedding? I thought you were being dramatic. I confirmed he was out per our mutual agreement. She launched into a rant accusing me of dividing the family and being jealous of Nate's charisma. Charisma. The guy wore crypto t-shirts and quoted Joe Rogan like scripture. I bit my tongue, saying this was Caddy's night. Mom stormed to the kitchen, and the rest of dinner was silent Dad's questions about Caddy's job failing to thaw the chill. 3 days later, Mom showed up unannounced at our condo, the afternoon light casting sharp shadows across the hardwood. Allison was working from home. I'd just returned from a meeting, my tie still knotted. Mom barged in, demanding we settle this Nate situation. She called Nate's proposal a harmless prank, said uninviting him was cruel, and insisted I be the bigger person. Nate and I agreed. He's not coming, I said. Talk to him. She escalated, shouting, I should be secure enough not to care. I snapped, you skipped my college graduation for Nate's cold, my awards ceremony for his no-line play. Enough. She dropped the bomb. If Nate's not welcome, I'm not coming either. I stayed calm. Your choice. I'm not begging you to be at my wedding. Her shock was palpable. She expected me to cave. You'd be okay with your mother missing your wedding, she asked. Wouldn't be the first time you picked Nate over me, I replied. She called me cruel and left. Hours later, her side of the family bombarded me with calls labeling me unreasonable. Dad called privately, admitting your mother's wrong. Nate was out of line, and actions have consequences. I'll be there. It was the first time he'd openly defied her. Nate, meanwhile, posted cryptic X updates about family betrayal, Mom commenting supportively, fanning the flames. I knew this wasn't over. Something bigger was about to break, and it would expose wounds we'd all ignored for too long. The fallout from Mom's ultimatum left a bitter taste like coffee gone cold, but Allison and I pressed on with wedding plans, choosing table linens, and finalizing the guest list while dodging family calls. My phone buzzed constantly, Mom's sisters, cousins, even a great-uncle, all preaching family unity and urging me to forgive Nate's stunt. I ignored most, but the pressure gnawed at me, a dull ache behind my eyes. Allison, unshaken, kept us focused, her laughter over a florist's typo calling our centerpieces carnation explosions, a reminder of why I loved her. But 3 weeks later, everything shattered. Mom showed up unannounced again, the midday sun glaring off our condo's windows. Allison was home working on a marketing deck when Mom knocked, demanding to talk. I was at a virtual meeting, but Allison texted me, Your mom's here. Okay if I let her in, I replied. Your call? I'll be home in 20. When I arrived, they sat at the dining table, Mom's untouched coffee cooling in Allison's favorite mug. The air crackled with tension like the moment before a thunderstorm. Mom started with a fake olive branch, family's too important for this nonsense. I braced myself, hoping for an apology. Instead, she turned to Allison. I wanted you alone. Without Brody's influence, you'd see reason about Nate. Allison's voice was steel. I wouldn't discuss this without Brody. It's his family. Mom's face darkened. So you need permission to speak now? I thought you were independent. I stepped in. Mom, enough. If you're here to insult Allison, leave. Ignoring me, she jabbed at Allison. Before you, our family was fine. Now Brody thinks he's too good for us. Allison stood calm but firm. Before me, Brody built his life despite your family's support, not because of it. You should go. That's when Mom lost it. As Allison walked toward the door, Mom grabbed her hair, yanking her back. Allison stumbled, falling, and Mom was on her, screaming, clawing at her face. I pulled Mom off, heart pounding, and physically removed her from the house. She pounded the door for 10 minutes, shrieking before finally leaving. Allison was shaken. Her arm bruised, a few scratches on her cheek, a small patch of hair missing. I called Dad and Caddy immediately. Dad, stunned, mumbled, Your mother's been stressed. I shot back, So have I, and I haven't assaulted anyone. Caddy, a nurse who'd seen domestic violence cases, rushed over, checking Allison's injuries. This isn't normal family conflict, she said. File a police report. Allison hesitated, hating to escalate, but agreed an official record might protect us if Mom spiraled further. The responding officers were blunt. One pulled me aside while Allison gave her statement. "I see family disputes daily," he said. "This isn't an argument, it's assault. Consider a restraining order." He handed me a family law attorney's card. We filed the report, and the next day at the courthouse, a judge granted a temporary restraining order. Mom couldn't come within 500 feet of us or our home for 90 days. Nate's response was a surprise, a text saying, "That's messed up. Sorry. No excuses, just acknowledgement, a rare crack in his delusion." Then came the financial bombshell. I'd always known about Grandpa's trust, $450,000 each for me. Caddy and Nate meant for education or major life milestones with Mom and Dad as trustees until we hit 30 or married. I'd seen little of it, always getting vague excuses about family expenses. After the assault, I dug deeper, requesting bank statements. The records were infuriating my share, and Caddy's had been gutted to fund Nate's lifestyle. His $2,300 monthly rent, a $42,000 SUV, the $85,000 taco truck disaster, even a $500 gaming PC, all from our trust. I'd gotten $15,000 for college. Caddy, $12,000. Meanwhile, Nate's checking account received $4,000 monthly transfers, covering everything from car insurance to dating apps. I hired an estate lawyer who confirmed my parents breached their fiduciary duty by favoring Nate. Caddy, equally furious, backed me to sue. We filed for breach of fiduciary duty and misappropriation, the paper trail bank transfers, credit card payments, rental agreements, damning. The lawyer warned this would hit hard, but I was done letting Mom and Nate's chaos rule our lives. As we prepared for court, Allison and I clung to wedding plans, picking songs and menu options, but the assault and betrayal cast a shadow, pushing us toward a reckoning I hadn't anticipated. The lawsuit papers hit my parents like a freight train, and I could almost smell the panic through Dad's voice when he called the day they were served. The living room where Allison and I had been reviewing wedding RSVPs felt suddenly small, the weight of what we'd started pressing against my ribs. "Brody, we need to talk," Dad pleaded. "There's been a misunderstanding." I gripped the phone, staring at the bank records spread across our coffee table. Automatic transfers to Nate's account, his car payments, his rent, all siphoned from mine and Caddy's inheritance. "The records are clear." "Dad," I said, "no misunderstanding." Mom grabbed the line, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. "Sweetheart, we meant to repay that money. We were helping Nate through a rough patch." "5 years is a rough patch," I shot back. "It wasn't yours to lend." She went silent, and I hung up, my pulse hammering. Our lawyer, a former prosecutor with a knack for financial crimes, treated the case like a mission. He uncovered doctored trust reports proving Mom and Dad hadn't just misused funds, they'd lied about it. The suit demanded repayment, new trust oversight, and penalties for their breach. It was a gut punch to file, but years of favoritism had hardened my resolve. The fallout was swift and brutal. The court froze Mom and Dad's assets pending the case, tanking their credit score when it hit public record. Dad's retirement plans set for next year vanished, he'd have to work indefinitely. Mom, who'd played stay-at-home matriarch for decades, took a receptionist job at a dentist's office, a role she'd once mocked as beneath her. Their country club membership lapsed, and their social circle, the one they bragged about at every holiday, quietly iced them out. No more invites to wine-soaked dinner parties. Embezzling from your kids doesn't win friends at the golf club. Nate felt it hardest. With the trust cut off, his $2,300 rent went unpaid, his SUV payment lapsed, and his credit cards maxed out. He couldn't get new loans, no job history, debt piled high. Caddy texted me that his electricity got shut off for 3 days midwinter, his apartment dark and freezing. A week into this, Nate called, voice shaky. "I'm in a bind, man. Can you loan me some cash? I'll pay you back." I almost laughed. "My money's tied up in legal fees recovering what you took. Target's hiring." He hung up, the silence louder than his usual whining. Allison and I pushed through, finalizing wedding details, a smaller venue by the lake, a playlist heavy on classic rock. But the lawsuit loomed, a constant hum of stress. Derek came over one night with burgers, his sarcasm a lifeline. "Your family's like a reality show, except nobody's getting paid," he said, tossing me a fry. He helped draft emails to vendors, keeping me sane. Caddy, meanwhile, was all in sending me trust documents she'd saved from years ago, her nurse's precision, a perfect match for the case. Our lawyer built a fortress of evidence, bank statements, Nate's lease, even his dating app receipts, all showing where Grandpa's money went. The judge's initial hearing was a formality, the freeze stayed, and discovery began unearthing more fraud. Mom sent a desperate email claiming they'd always planned to fix the trust. I didn't reply. Her side of the family, where Nate was a misunderstood genius, was crumbling, and Nate's ex-posts about blood not meaning anything got fewer likes by the day. The strain showed at home, too. At a family dinner with Allison's parents, her dad asked about the case, his brow furrowed over pot roast. I summarized, and he shook his head. Your folks chose the wrong kid to bet on. Allison squeezed my hand under the table, her steady presence, my anchor. We started talking about moving her company, offered a role in Atlanta, and my job was remote. 600 miles from Michigan's drama sounded like freedom. As the court date neared, Nate's silence grew eerie like the calm before a storm. I wondered if he'd finally face reality or double down on delusion. Either way, the lawsuit was our line in the sand, no more enabling, no more excuses. The wedding was weeks away, and while we'd slashed the guest list, the thought of starting fresh with Allison kept me going. But the real test was coming, and it would force everyone to face truths they'd dodged for years. Part 6. The lawsuit papers hit my parents like a freight train, and I could almost smell the panic through Dad's voice when he called the day they were served. The living room where Allison and I had been reviewing wedding RSVPs felt suddenly small, the weight of what we'd started pressing against my ribs. Brody, we need to talk, Dad pleaded. There's been a misunderstanding. I gripped the phone, staring at the bank records spread across our coffee table. Automatic transfers to Nate's account, his car payments, his rent, all siphoned from mine and Caddy's inheritance. The records are clear, Dad, I said. No misunderstanding. Mom grabbed the line, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. Sweetheart, we meant to repay that money. We were helping Nate through a rough patch. 5 years is a rough patch, I shot back. It wasn't yours to lend. She went silent and I hung up my pulse, hammering. Our lawyer, a former prosecutor, with a knack for financial crimes, treated the case like a mission. He uncovered doctored trust reports, proving Mom and Dad hadn't just misused funds, they'd lied about it. The suit demanded repayment, new trust oversight, and penalties for their breach. It was a gut punch to file, but years of favoritism had hardened my resolve. The fallout was swift and brutal. The court froze Mom and Dad's assets pending the case, tanking their credit score when it hit public record. Dad's retirement plan set for next year vanished. He'd have to work indefinitely. Mom, who'd played stay-at-home matriarch for decades, took a receptionist job at a dentist's office, a role she'd once mocked as beneath her. Their country club membership lapsed, and their social circle, the one they bragged about at every holiday, quietly iced them out. No more invites to wine-soaked dinner parties. Embezzling from your kids doesn't win friends at the golf club. Nate felt it hardest. With the trust cut off, his $300 rent went unpaid. His SUV payment lapsed, and his credit cards maxed out. He couldn't get new loans, no job history, debt piled high. Caddy texted me that his electricity got shut off for 3 days midwinter, his apartment dark and freezing. A week into this, Nate called, voice shaky. I'm in a bind, man. Can you loan me some cash? I'll pay you back. I almost laughed. My money's tied up in legal fees recovering what you took. Target's hiring. He hung up, the silence louder than his usual whining. Allison and I pushed through finalizing wedding details, a smaller venue by the lake, a playlist heavy on classic rock. But the lawsuit loomed, a constant hum of stress. Derek came over one night with burgers, his sarcasm a lifeline. Your family's like a reality show, except nobody's getting paid, he said, tossing me a fry. He helped draft emails to vendors, keeping me sane. Caddy, meanwhile, was all in, sending me trust documents she'd saved from years ago, her nurse's precision a perfect match for the case. Our lawyer built a fortress of evidence, bank statements, Nate's lease, even his dating app receipts, all showing where Grandpa's money went. The judge's initial hearing was a formality, the freeze stayed, and discovery began unearthing more fraud. Mom sent a desperate email claiming they'd always planned to fix the trust. I didn't reply. Her side of the family, where Nate was a misunderstood genius, was crumbling, and Nate's ex-posts about blood not meaning anything got fewer likes by the day. The strain showed at home, too. At a family dinner with Allison's parents, her dad asked about the case, his brow furrowed over pot roast. I summarized, and he shook his head. Your folks chose the wrong kid to bet on. Allison squeezed my hand under the table, her steady presence my anchor. We started talking about moving her company, offered a role in Atlanta, And my job was remote. 600 miles from Michigan's drama sounded like freedom. As the court date neared, Nate's silence grew eerie like the calm before a storm. I wondered if he'd finally face reality or double down on delusion. Either way, the lawsuit was our line in the sand, no more enabling, no more excuses. The wedding was weeks away, and while we'd slashed the guest list, the thought of starting fresh with Allison kept me going. But the real test was coming, and it would force everyone to face truths they'd dodged for years. The wedding was 2 weeks away, and our condo was a whirlwind of seating charts and sample menus, the scent of Allison's lavender candle fighting the chaos. Nate's stunt and Mom's assault had gutted our guest list. Her side of the family boycotted, calling me divisive, while Dad's side stayed loyal. We downsized from 200 to 50 guests, saving $15,000 on the venue and catering, which we redirected to a New Zealand honeymoon. The smaller event felt right intimate, like a deep breath after years of holding it. Allison and I finalized details, her dress a sleek ivory number, my suit tailored to hide my nervous sweat. Caddy helped pick tablecloths, joking about sneaking her taser in case Nate crashed. Derek, my best man, kept things light, texting memes of runaway grooms to ease my stress. But the lawsuit hung heavy, a storm cloud over our joy. Court hearings revealed more. Mom and Dad had funneled another $20,000 from the trust into Nate's consulting gig that never existed. Our lawyer, relentless, pushed for a settlement to avoid a trial that would have aired every dirty detail publicly. The wedding day arrived crisp and sunny, the lake outside the venue sparkling like Allison's ring. Dad attended solo, quiet but supportive, his tie slightly crooked as he hugged me. Caddy brought her boyfriend, a steady pediatric surgeon who'd already won her over with bad puns. Mom and Nate were absent as planned, their absence a relief more than a sting. Derek's best man speech stole the show, his voice booming over clinking glasses. Brody dodged more bullets from his family than most action heroes, and he's still standing with Allison. That's a win. The room laughed, those in the know harder than most. Allison and I danced to Springsteen, her head on my shoulder, the world fading to just us. For one night, the drama felt distant, like a bad dream left in Michigan's morning fog. Days later, the lawsuit settled. Mom and Dad agreed to a repayment plan, selling their northern Michigan lake house at a loss and downsizing from their 4,000-square-foot McMansion to a 200-square-foot condo in a neighborhood they'd once scoffed at. Dad's prized boat went next, sold to cover initial payments. The remaining trust, about $450,000, moved to a neutral third-party trustee with strict rules. I got my full share immediately since I was over 30 and married $397,000 after legal fees and taxes. Caddy would get hers at 30. Nate's share required him to hold a job for 12 months or wait until 30 per Grandpa's original terms. He was livid, texting me. "That money's mine," I replied. "1/3 is when you earn it. No more blank checks." The settlement hit Mom and Dad hard. Their social status crumbled further, no more country club brunches or yacht club gossip. Nate cut off, faced late bills and a looming eviction notice, his ex-posts about injustice now ignored. With my share, I paid off our condo mortgage, the relief like shedding a heavy coat. We booked first-class flights to New Zealand. Allison's dream trip, and I started an investment portfolio, something Grandpa, the hardware store tycoon, would have nodded at. We didn't tell Nate about the money. Let him think it was still tied up. Allison and I began packing for Atlanta, her new job offer a beacon of escape. The condo smelled of cardboard boxes and fresh starts as we sorted books and dishes. Derek swung by with pizza, eyeing the chaos. "You're finally free, man," he said, cracking a beer. "No more dodging Mom's ambushes." Caddy called, thrilled about her own trust payout in a few years, already planning a visit to Atlanta. Dad emailed admitting he'd enabled Nate too long, his therapy starting to chip away at old patterns. Mom, though, kept sending guilt trips, her latest email whining about family forgiveness. I forwarded it to Derek, who sent back a gif of a tiny violin. The wedding and settlement closed one chapter, but moving to Atlanta felt like opening a new book, one where we'd write the rules, far from the wreckage of Nate's delusions and Mom's blind loyalty. Atlanta's warm air hit us like a promise. When we stepped off the plane, the scent of magnolias and grilled street food, a far cry from Michigan's piney chill. Allison and I settled into a 4-bedroom house in a leafy suburb, the kind with wide porches and neighbors who wave. We adopted a German Shepherd mix, Rocket, whose eager barks filled the backyard as he chased squirrels. Allison thrived in her new marketing role, her office buzzing with energy, while my promotion to lead architect meant longer hours, but more freedom to shape projects. The $397,000 from the trust changed everything. Mortgage gone, a New Zealand honeymoon that left us awestruck by fjords and starry skies, and a vacation cabin in North Carolina's mountains for quiet weekends. We stayed frugal, no flashy cars or designer labels, just college funds for future kids, and a portfolio growing steadily, Grandpa's shrewdness guiding us. Derek visited monthly, his new job bringing him southeast, crashing on our couch with takeout and PlayStation battles. Best part of this place, he grinned, sprawled in our living room. Too far for your mom to pop in. Allison laughed, tossing him a controller, their banter a warm constant in our new life. Family updates trickled in a mix of progress and stubborn denial. Dad called monthly, his voice softer, detailing therapy breakthroughs, admitting he'd been a coward, enabling Mom and Nate to avoid conflict. I failed you, he wrote once, the words heavy with regret. He'd be at Caddy's Hawaii wedding next year, solo if needed. Mom, though, clung to her script, emailing about forgiving mistakes and hinting at visiting. I replied sparingly, keeping boundaries firm. Her assault on Allison wasn't a footnote to gloss over. The restraining order lapsed after our move unnecessary, with 600 miles between us. Nate shockingly stuck with his tech store job, Caddy reporting he was clocking regular hours paying his own bills. His email caught me off guard. That proposal was messed up. I was jealous you had it together. I was a wreck. Mom and Dad made it too easy to screw up. Sorry to Allison. I waited a week, then replied, thanks. Good luck with the job. A package arrived later, a $500 check, his note calling it a first installment on what he owed. It was a drop compared to the trust's losses, but the gesture hit me. Nate was finally waking up. Caddy visited every few months, her engagement to her surgeon fiancé sparking plans for a house near us. No parents at my wedding, she declared over wine, her eyes fierce. Nate's invited, but he's on thin ice. Mom's emails grew sharper, accusing me of punishing her when Nate was moving on. I forwarded one to Derek, who sent back a gif of a clown juggling his shorthand for her nonsense. Allison and I talked kids maybe in a year, imagining Rocket guarding a stroller. The distance from Michigan's drama felt like oxygen after years underwater. Dad's therapy, Nate's job, Caddy's support. They were cracks of light in a family I'd nearly written off. But Mom's refusal to own her actions kept the wound open, a reminder of why we left. As I write this sitting on our porch with Rocket snoring at my feet, I see how Nate's insane proposal set off a chain reaction. Mom lost her grip, Dad found his spine, Nate faced reality, and I stopped chasing approval that never came. It wasn't the path I'd planned, but it freed me. The trust money gave us stability, but the real wealth is this life. Allison's laugh, Derek's sarcasm, Caddy's visits, a home where drama doesn't knock uninvited. The evening light softens Atlanta's edges, casting long shadows across our lawn as Rocket chases a moth, his tail a blur of joy. Allison hums inside, prepping dinner, her voice a quiet anchor. 6 months here, and the chaos of Michigan feels like a distant echo, a storm that's passed. The lawsuit, the wedding, the move. They carved a new path, one where I'm not the overlooked son but a man building a future. Nate's apology, Dad's growth, Caddy's loyalty, they hint at healing slow and uneven like spring after a hard frost. Mom's emails still sting, her denial a stubborn root, but I don't carry that weight anymore. We've got plans, kids, trips, a life unscripted by family demands. Derek's right distance is freedom. As the stars emerge, faint against the city's glow, I feel at peace, hard one whispering that we're finally home.